Just 2 days after the bodies of two American climbers were found in Peru, we're now learning new information, new details from the lead investigator in the case about their dangerous quest and how authorities now believe they may have died. Brian Todd has been working the story for us. Brian's joining us now with details. Brian, tell our viewers what you're learning.
Wolf, a short time ago, we spoke to the leader of that rescue and investigation team in Peru. He does have harrowing new details on where the climbers were on that peak and how far they may have fallen. In one of their last communiques, climbers Gil Weiss and Ben Horn gave an indication of what they were up against. Just before they vanished earlier this month on the 20,000-foot Peruvian peak called Palcarajo Oeste, Horn wrote on his blog that he'd encountered hurricane-force winds that had knocked him off balance and, quote, very deep and loose snow. The two Americans were found dead at the base of that peak over the weekend. We spoke with Ted Alexander, who coordinated the rescue effort from nearby. He says his team believes the two men had a horrific fall. About how far do you believe they fell?
The evidence being their equipment was strewn over the glacier. There was sign of great impact, would lead us to believe that they did fall. My guess, looking at the photos and from talking to our guys out there, that it was probably about a 1,000-foot fall.
The rescuers who pulled the bodies from that mountain have just given Alexander new details on how they believe the men fell. He passed that information on to us. Alexander says from what he and his team have put together, it looks like this was the route used by the two climbers to climb that mountain. Alexander says they believe the men reached the summit, then descended down this way. Now, about halfway down, roughly in this area, Alexander says he believes that they reached what's called a serac, a large hanging chunk of ice. Investigators believe one of the men may have been looking over that chunk of ice, trying to determine if they could descend to the next level from there. Now, at that point, investigators believe something gave out from underneath that climber, causing him to fall roughly 65 feet. But because they believe the two men were tethered together, that fall pulled the other man off the edge, causing both of them to be pulled off the larger cliff and down. Both of the bodies were found in this area. Ted Alexander, who knew Gil Weiss, says the two men were experienced climbers, not reckless, but he says they'd not taken on this dangerous peak before. A relative of Ben Horn's tells us he had worked with the Peace Corps in Kyrgyzstan and developed a love of hiking in the Boy Scouts. Gil Weiss had started his own production company in Colorado and had photographed a wedding staged on a peak there. His sister told us what she'd like the world to remember about Gil.
Gil had the most optimistic view on practically everything, and I think it's really important to understand that you have to make the most of what you've got, and you've got to be grateful for everyone in your life.
Galit Weiss says one thing the family will cherish now is a hiking trip that Gil took with her and their father recently in Colorado. She says Gil got their father to climb what's called the first Flatiron. That's a difficult trail near Boulder, and that they were all very thrilled with that. Gil Weiss was 29 years old. Ben Horn was 32. Wolf.
That mountain range, Brian, has been known to be dangerous to climbers, hasn't it?
That's right. It's called the Cordillera Blanca range. According to one report, 8 people have died on that range just this year. The head of a police high mountain rescue team says at least 40 people have been evacuated from there due to medical problems. It is very, very dangerous.
Brian Todd reporting. Thank you.